All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the sixth in the Nebo Company's webinar series, Smart Strategies for Talent Development. Our topic today is the magic and methods of choosing the right coach. Before we begin, I would just like to introduce myself. My name's Izzy Martins, and I'm the Senior Manager of Client Experience at the Nebo Company. The Nebo Company is a leadership development firm with offices in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta. And Nebo works at the intersection of leadership strategy, leadership development, and culture. We provide coaching, team coaching, and leadership development trainings and retreats. And we are known for strategic vision and planning, as well as culture change work. Today, we're delighted to share our insights from more than 15 years of work in coaching with leaders. I'd love to give you just some brief instructions for how to participate in the webinar today. The first tip is to participate in our poll. In just a few moments, we will give you the option to vote with just a brief poll. You'll see the poll pop up on your Zoom window, and at that time, you can click in your answer. The second tip is to type in your questions. Kate and Tanara will save time at the end for answering your questions. And you'll notice that at the bottom of your Zoom window, there's both a chat function and a Q&A function. You can use either of those options to send us a message. We'll make sure that we have time to answer those questions. And if we don't have time at the end, we'll write down your name and try and answer your question via email. The last thing is, if you run into any problems during the webinar or you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. My email address is imartins@nebocompany.com. And now to introduce our speakers for the day. Kate Ebner is the founder and CEO of the Nebo Company, as well as a top leadership coach, facilitator, and the founding director of Georgetown University's Institute for Transformational Leadership. Kate works with CEOs, senior leaders, and executive women, and she's passionate about helping leaders and teams make their visions real. Kate is joined today by Tanara Bowie. Tanara is Nebo's Director of Coaching Services. And in this role, she works closely with clients and sponsors to identify the best solutions for their leadership development priorities. Tanara herself is also a trained coach through the Coach Training Institute, so she understands the coaching process and the power of coaching. Kate, Tanara, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Izzy.
Thank you, Izzy. We're going to remove our video for the presentation part, but we'll put ourselves back on video at the end so we can take questions and you'll be able to see us. So thank you, Izzy, and let's jump in. Thank you. So as we get started here, I think that one of the things I want to start with is simply the title of our session, which is the magic and methods of choosing the right coach. And I think that the exciting word in that title is the idea of magic. And is there a magic? Is there a right match? Is there just exactly the right coach for you? And we want to take the question, how do you choose a coach who's a great match for you? How do you know when you're interviewing multiple coaches? Our key takeaways today are to help you learn about the art and science of choosing a coach. And if you are a coach and are listening to this, perhaps to gain some insight about how the client might be approaching or thinking about making this choice, to explore how to evaluate fit and why it matters, to give you a couple of strategies and tactics for thinking about and selecting your coach, and then have any questions answered. I think what we want to do is demystify this a little bit and make it accessible to you. Tanara and I have been doing this for many years. This is my 19th year, I believe, of working as a leadership coach and as a coach who's been interviewed by many, many people, sometimes chosen, sometimes not, sometimes having a sense that this would be a great match and sometimes not. I'm dying to share with you my own perspective, having had that experience. I think I'd also like to provide a little bit of perspective from the Nebo point of view as we match hundreds of people with coaches every year. And I know that Tanara, you bring a unique perspective too. Do you want to just comment on the perspective that you're offering today?
Yeah, I've spoken with hundreds and hundreds of clients about selecting a coach, and they run the gamut from a rising leader up to C-suite. Um, every person is different, but what they're seeking, I would say it boils down to, four areas which we can talk about later, but ultimately they want to make something different. They have an objective and they want something to be different. They want to make an impact. And so really am excited about sharing how our approach to working with our clients to help them select the best coach for them.
Great, thank you very much. The magic of a great match. So here's a quote that is representative of the kinds of quotes we hear all the time. This is an actual quote. This is a quote that was written in gratitude to us for a great coach match. And this person said, "My coach was just who I needed, the right person at the right time. She got me and also challenged me. We had great conversations that changed how I see things and gave me the courage to step up." And I think that one of the benefits of this particular quote is it gives us some of the dimensions of what makes for a great match. The idea that the coach was just who I needed really gets at the idea that different coaches may be right for you at different times. And I think that that's important to realize, because you may do some interviewing like every single person you talk to. And I think that the idea of at this particular moment, what is the best match might be helpful to you. The feeling about she got me, right? I felt like I was understood, I was accepted, I was appreciated, I was also challenged, right? So the feeling you should have as you hang up the phone is, I was talking to someone who could see who I am, and I felt like it didn't take much for this person to grasp sort of what's important to me. That we have great conversations that changed how I see things. I think ultimately coaching is really about shifting the crystal, changing the lens, so that the coaching client can see familiar things in new ways and ultimately step up and into their challenges. So hopefully these conversations, conversations between a coach and client that would constitute a great match would include the sense that there's momentum, there's some traction, there's some shifting going on. So we'll start with a refresher on what you want to do with your coach, and this might influence who you think of as the right match. So Izzy, would you actually invite folks to take a poll with us?
Absolutely. So the question for our poll is, what would you like to work on with a coach? And you should have seen a poll pop up on your Zoom window. And here are a few options to choose from. You might want to be working on presence or perhaps relationships. Maybe you're thinking about what's the right career strategy. Maybe you want to work on mastery of leadership capabilities. Or maybe you're just looking for a sounding board, someone to bounce ideas off of. Or maybe it's resiliency strategies. So I will give you one more minute to populate the poll, send in your answer, and then we will all take a look at the results.
Thank you, Izzy. And I think that this is a great list. It's not an all-inclusive list, so you might be looking for something that's not there. And I would say that these are common themes we see as people consider working with a coach. Could be working on their leadership presence, how they convey to others. Could be working on relationships. It could be within their organization or outside of their organization, kind of key stakeholders. Could even be sort of more broadly aspects of communication, aspects of connection, aspects of being understood, coming through more clearly in relationships. Career strategy is a common one, and leadership coaches aren't the same as career coaches, but they usually are very capable of helping the individual leader think strategically about opportunity and career development. Mastery of their capabilities. I often think about this as in terms of the question, what's on my plate right now, and am I fully capable of it? Or what's stretching me? What do I need to master in order to be great at what I'm here to do? Could be you're looking for a sounding board. People talk about wanting somebody who can help them think, a thought partner. or resilience strategies. How do we survive our commitments at home and at work? And how do we bounce back from adversity? How do we handle and have the stamina for some tough challenges? So hopefully this gives you enough time to take in your votes.
Great. So I'm going to close the poll and we'll see what we've got. So it looks like we had a tie with mastery of leadership capabilities and a sounding board coming in the top spot. We have resilient strategies as a close second, and we also see that presence arises. So Kate and Tanara, what do you think of these results?
Tanara, any response?
Yeah, they feel consistent with the conversations that I have with leaders. The sounding board is really something that I find that senior leaders are looking for, and the mastery of leadership capabilities is something that, no matter your level, no matter your industry, people want to be their best selves. They want to be the best leader that they can be to have the best impact that they can have.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Tanara. I think that's right. I think, mastery of leadership capabilities is probably sufficiently broad that it makes it a popular category, especially as I described it. But I think that there's so much learning that comes from stepping into a position and being willing to take on responsibility for leading something or directing something. So the question I often ask my clients is, what does this opportunity give you a chance to learn how to do? Or how might you grow through this set of challenges? And even the hardest things give us that opportunity. So it's nice to see that show up as one of the tied tops. All right. So we talked a moment ago about the right coach for right now. Different coaches offer different things. You want to choose the coach whose focus seems who seems right for the focus you're seeking. Rightness might be a combination of factors. It could be the personal style they have, the methodology they bring to the coaching work, their background prior to becoming a coach, their focus as a coach, or an intuitive sense that you have, like, this is the person I want to work with. Can't say why entirely, but I feel certain that this is a fit. So this is a little bit of the magic, right? Because it's not a formula that if you follow it, you're guaranteed a strong fit. It's your own ability to take these factors into consideration and then feel that sense of rightness with a particular interview. And I guess the one thing I would like to say is that before I became a coach, I hired 3 different coaches for 3 different reasons. And I think that my own perspective about different coaches offer different things comes from that really great experience that I had. The first coach I hired was because I was stepping into a very senior leadership role in an organization, and I wanted to step in strong and be effective. It was also a really tough, high performance culture. And I felt like I needed to have some stamina and some, chops for my new position. It was a big adjustment for me. I hired the coach out of pocket. She was an executive leadership coach with an executive background, and she really helped me think about how to come in strong and really establish myself as a leader among peers at the executive level. She had a lot of organizational perspective. She had a really understanding of what I needed to be focused on, and I think really listened well to me. So that was an executive leadership coach. The next person I hired was a personal coach. This was a life coach. And having had that first experience, I was still feeling at the time like there was something missing in my life. I wasn't entirely sure I was on the right path. That was, by the way, before I became a coach. And I hired this coach to help me really connect with what mattered to me. This life coach worked with me on personal values, a sense of purpose, and a sense of path. Also worked with me on personal visioning. And it was actually through the work with that coach that I began to realize that I had all of these important things I wanted to accomplish in my life, and I had, without even realizing it, expected myself to accomplish them in the next 2 years. I remember she did a timeline exercise, and we mapped my aspirations out over a 10-year period or a 20-year period, and we it ended up creating a lot of space and a lot of freedom instead of that panicked feeling I had that I might be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So also very helpful, different coach, different style, very valuable to me. The third coach that I hired really helped me as I became an entrepreneur. I hired someone with a specialty around coaching entrepreneurs, and she really helped me understand the mindset and particularly the gutsiness of starting a business and how to navigate some of that. So again, all great coaches. Rightness for me was a combination of my own personal need in context, what was happening with me, and then the method and background that the coach would bring. And I would say to you, when you're thinking about coaches and trying to sort of maybe discern a little bit one from another, many coaches have similar kinds of training in becoming a coach. What might really make them different is what they did before they became a coach. So you could look at that background, not because it needs to be a match with you, but actually because it's going to give you a sense of the kinds of challenges, the complexity, the kinds of issues that they've grappled with in the past and that might be at the back in some way of their coaching approach. So those are just a few thoughts there. I keep going. So one question that comes up for us quite often, and Tanara will comment on this in a moment, but should you choose your own coach or is being assigned okay? And I think this comes up because if you're someone who's putting coaching together for a leadership program, or perhaps you have the sense that, you know what, I want to be as efficient as possible, and I'd like to just, talk to the coaching team and then have assignments made for us. Is that a bad thing? The answer is both can work. It's also best to choose whenever possible. So if you have the option to take the time to interview 2 or 3 people to make that final choice, I would strongly encourage you to do it because you know yourself best. If you go through the trouble of discerning who you want to work with, you're going to feel more committed to the relationship versus someone just assigned to you who you're sort of inheriting. The process also of being interviewed by multiple coaches really helps you get more clear on what you want from the coaching. Coaches will ask you that question and you'll find yourself having to answer it. So the process is valuable, and whenever possible, choose. However, I would also say that assigned coaching can work well when the person who's making the coaching assignment knows you and also knows the coach as well. We have a number of programs we do where we know the coaches well. We'll interview the leaders and we'll make that assignment based on what we learn about the leaders and their goals and aspirations and their personal style and what we know about our coaches. And that can be done very, very effectively as well. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just preferable from our perspective, if possible, for you to have some say in it. Tanara, do you want to comment there?
Yeah, I'll say even with both these choices, there is the choice. Even when we quote unquote assign a coach, we often say, why don't you speak with this coach, get a sense of whether you'd like to work with them, and then move forward. So, they're still interviewing, asking questions, looking at the fit. When they choose, then they have a greater investment in the coaching. And I'll have a client say, I just cannot choose between these 2 coaches. Like, what should I do? And so I ask coach-like questions, but in the back of my mind, what I'm holding is that this person will make the best choice for their needs. And so I, will not choose for them, but really support them in making a choice and letting them know that, it's an important decision, but it's not life or death. So if you work with a coach and you find that for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to be working, which happens very rarely, then you can choose again. So you're not locked into it. But, just go in with the sense that I have power, I have a choice, and I am going to do what's best for me.
Thank you. So as you prepare for that coach interview, it will really help you in the interviewing of coaches if you give some thought to what we call the before and the after. right? So at the start of coaching, how would you describe where you are and what you're concerned with? And then where would you like to be at the end of coaching? Can you actually articulate the before and the after that you desire? I think you can expect that the coach will ask you, tell me about yourself, tell me about your circumstances. What will you like to have be different as a result of working with a coach? So anticipating that question, sort of begin with the end in mind. We also recommend that in advance of the interviews, you might want to sit down and think about what your priorities, learning goals are, your ideas about how coaching might help you. And so here are some question prompts that are really just examples of questions that might help you get at those priorities and learning goals. The first one is simply, what would you like to focus on in the coaching? And by the way, it needs to be about you. If it can't be, I want to focus on, helping my direct reports be more productive, right? It needs to be, I want to focus on improving my approach to managing people, right? So I think beginning to really think about what is it I want to work on about myself. What would you like to learn about yourself, about leadership, about the organization through this experience of being coached during this time period? What are your priorities over the next 6 to 12 months? And we would love for you to think about the whole picture, because when every leader is not every minute of the day leading an organization, those things that happen outside of work affect us greatly in our ability to lead. So what are your priorities over the next 6 to 12 months? Can you articulate those? And then if you have recent feedback that might help shape your objective, maybe you have a performance review or a 360 or a comment someone made, right? Anything that might inform you as you think about what you need and want to work on, that would be a good thing.
Kate, can you go back to the previous slide? I'd just like to add about the priorities that sometimes when I speak with clients, they have a lot of objectives that they want to focus on, and then some people, they find it hard to really nail down what the thing is that they want to focus on. And that is the purpose of the coaching engagement. It's to help you get clear about what you want to focus on, and then work with you, use their process to help you get there. And you may find that over the course of the coaching that your objective may change slightly, or what you thought you wanted to work on at the beginning, it becomes clear what it really is that you do want to accomplish.
Thank you, Tanara. That's a great comment. 4 reasons people get stuck. This is coming straight out of our experience of interviewing people. And Tanara, in particular, has often been the place people go when they're feeling uncertain about who to choose. And I think sometimes we've been surprised, actually, at how seriously people are taking this decision. And in some ways, I think of it as when everything seems like a right choice, which is usually the scenario that we see. How do you know for sure? And so what's wonderful about this conversation when we have it with our clients is that it actually helps them to continue to sharpen their focus and really think about what is important to them. You might be someone who doesn't get stuck, and for you it's obvious and easy and you sort of move forward quickly. That's good too. But Tanara, tell us why people do get stuck.
Yeah, I find that people are overwhelmed in their personal life or in their work life or both. And so choosing a coach feels like one more thing that they have to do. And I try to help them understand that the overwhelm that they're feeling is something that could be addressed through coaching, that what got them to the place of overwhelm is a right focus for their coaching, if they can just get there. So if I send them a list of coaches to consider, I might say, how about I reduce the number of coaches to 2? So then that reduces the number that you have to consider. The second reason is they can't decide between a coach. Should they choose someone who feels like them, or should they choose someone who feels different? So someone who has a hard-charging style and they're getting feedback at work that their approach is a bit aggressive, they may resonate with a coach who also has a very direct style, but has figured out how to modulate that very direct style. Or they may decide that they want to work with someone who has a softer, gentler style, one that reflects an interaction that they're having at work that they find particularly challenging because that person has a very different style. So they may want to experiment with this person who does have a different style. The third reason is that they feel like they have to get this right. It has to be perfect, that their company is making this great financial investment in their growth, or they're paying out of pocket. And so they're working with a coach who they don't really know, and for an objective that they hope that they can reach. And so, it's also part of the magic, and it's, a leap of faith may feel like a leap of faith. So that's the third reason. The fourth is an organization may put a client forward for coaching because they see, they feel that this person has great aptitude, they see a great future for this person, but they may not have explained that well or not at all, or they see the learning edges for that person, and so they go to the person and say, you're going to receive coaching. And a person who is not familiar with coaching, may not have worked with a coach before, is thinking, oh no, I don't know of anybody else who's getting coaching at my organization. And as a company, confidentiality is something that we hold very highly. So when I speak with a client, I'm not going to talk about others at the organization that are going to be receiving coaching. So others may be receiving coaching, but they don't know that. So all they know is they're receiving coaching. They don't understand what it is or why they're being put forward. And so part of our job, part of our role, is to explain to them that this is an investment in them, that their organization would not put out, this kind of investment if they did not see a future for this person.
Thank you, Tanara. So, quickly, as we want to leave time for questions and answers here, I just want to make a couple more points. One is that when you do the interview with coaches, we've already, if you're working with Nebo, we usually give you a little primer on how to have a good interview. But a couple thoughts that might be useful to you. The first is that what's usually running through the heads of people interviewing coaches is something like this. Will I like to work with this person? Do I feel a connection? Can they help me? And which of these folks can help me the best? They might assess that in terms of their experience, their perspective, their comfort with the issues that you're putting forward, or even just your sense that there's someone you would allow to help you, that you have respect for their credential or for their style or their method. What am I going to get from this process? An investment. So often when we're interviewing people, we're thinking like, how will it work, right? What is the process? That's often a frequent question. And then how do I know it's going to be worth it? And so that's a common thought, and it's a great thought to surface actually in the interview. The fourth question is, have they worked with someone like me before? And I want to say here that it's less important that the coach has an exact background. So for example, if you might be a lawyer, or you might be an accountant, or you might be a rocket scientist, right? You don't need a coach who has that background, but you do need a coach who has comfort with the set of leadership challenges you're facing. So this question, have they worked with someone like me or in my situation before, is a really good one. And it's a fair question to ask when you're interviewing. And then I always appreciate that people are thinking about, okay, what will it be like to work with this person, with this coach? And the actual interview itself is an experience of the coach's style. And so you're getting a sense of that just by the way the coach responds to you, by the way they use humor, the way they answer questions, right? So I would evaluate that two ways. If I were interviewing, I might ask the question, what's it like to work with you? And what do your clients say? What do you think? And then I might also ask myself, did I like that conversation? How did it feel? Those are commonly the things that people are thinking about. In the coach's view, the coach is having a similar inner conversation. Will I like to work with this person? Coaches see coaching as a partnership. They don't think of themselves as working for you. They think of themselves as working with you. So they need to be willing and excited to work with you. So they're asking, will I like to work with this person? They might be thinking about your challenge or your situation, your goal, and asking, what approach will I take? I know that that happens for me when someone's telling me what they're experiencing or what they're trying to do. I almost immediately start thinking, how might I approach this given what I'm learning? Will they be committed to this work? This is a biggie for us as coaches. Like if someone is reluctant or too busy or not clearly committed, that can be a source of frustration for both. So I'm wanting to ascertain the level of commitment. Are they coachable? Coachable, all of us are coachable, but not at every moment of every year of every month of our lives. So, you know, if the person has the time, the willingness, is interested in learning and growing, they're coachable. Not everybody has all of those things at once. And how can I demonstrate who I am to help them choose? And I think the intent behind that inner talk is not so much to have them pick me, but actually to make sure that they choose the person who's the right coach for them, which could be me. So I try to be as transparent as I can about my style, my approach, my preferences, so that they understand when they're choosing me what they're getting. And I think that coaches should be working to show you who they are and how they operate.
Kate, I just like to add that there's an article on our site that I wrote. It's very creative title, 4 Questions to Ask a Potential Coach. But it goes into great detail about each question and that you can take in with you as you're interviewing a coach. I like to add that I am working with a coach right now, and those are questions that I went in as I was thinking about selecting this coach.
Thank you, Tanara. It's a great comment. You know, these are a good sort of little prompts as well. If you're either a coach preparing to be interviewed or a coachee ready to interview a coach. So coaches need to know this about you. They need to know that you're ready, willing, and open. We need to know that you can describe your situation and what you want to change or how you want to grow. That you have the time and ability to commit, and they want to know what's most on your mind or any special circumstances, right? So if you're newly promoted or you're going through a divorce or you have a really intense and challenging team, those are the kinds of things we want to know. So we want to not just get the broad strokes, but actually a bit of detail about what's happening for you. What the leader needs to know as we think about this match is that this coach understands me, what the process will look like, you know, what's it going to be like to work with you, and how will this process get us there? Many clients ask me this question, like, I get that we're going to have these conversations, but how will that actually change anything? That's a really good question. And that there's a sense that the coach and the leader can connect and relate to each other. So here's, again, some questions we're offering you as a way of preparing yourself for a coaching interview. If you're a leader, you could ask, what did you do before you became a coach? That kind of helps you differentiate one coach from another, gives you a sense of where they might be coming from in their approach. Again, pay attention to the challenges they faced versus just the literal translation of experience. What types of clients do you typically work with? And of course, the unstated question is, have you worked with someone like me, right? Someone in my situation, my industry, my stage of life. The answer doesn't have to be yes, by the way, but it's interesting to hear their level of comfort and experience and also just how they handle that question. What's it like to work with you as my coach? And what's your approach to someone in my circumstances? So maybe I'm a newly promoted senior executive, you know, how would you handle that? Right? Or maybe I'm a new mother. How would you handle that? You know, so just thinking about some questions that will help you have some great interviews. Coaches do know that this is a selection process, and it's really important for you to realize that there's no need to feel badly about deciding on one coach versus another. We are in this process wanting very much for you to make the match that feels right to you. And if for any reason whatsoever, it's not the coach you're talking to, that coach wishes you well. And so I would just encourage you not to get stuck because you feel badly about deciding on one versus another. Sometimes it's great to just make a choice and let the other person know that you enjoyed meeting them, and that perhaps in the future you might enjoy working with them, but for now you've chosen someone else. So the magic of coaching falls in these three qualities, right? The quality of the connection that you hold, the quality of the conversation itself that you have, not only in the interview, but actually the quality of the conversation over time, and the quality of the coaching process, the sense that this person has a process that you would enjoy and work well with. Overall, running across all three of those qualities is maybe a quality called intentionality, the sense of together we have a shared focus, we have a strong connection, we have a rich, deep, meaningful conversation, and we have a process that's working for us both. So that when all those things are in place, I think that's when we start to say, yes, there's magic here. So I want to just move us now to this idea of a great fit. And Tanara and I felt like it might be fun to help you assess by thinking, what should it feel like when you know you've got a great fit? So this is sort of a playful list, but you should feel energized and excited when you hang up the phone. Like, I liked that person, I want to do this. The person might have given you a fresh way of thinking about yourself or your challenge, even just because of the coach interview. You feel like you took something away. You understand who the coach is, how they offer coaching, and how they deliver their services. You want to talk to them again. You feel motivated to do your part. You felt like you were honest and open, that you didn't hold back, and you were able to do that, and that the coach did the same. And you feel hopeful or even relieved about your circumstances, knowing that you've engaged the coach. So this is just a fun list to help you think about, was this a great interview, and is this potentially a great fit? We've offered this little tool as well, which is just, let's say you were interviewing 3 coaches, you could just kind of put notes or rate them. And we've never made a tool like this before. This is the first airing of this concept, but I think the idea here is, okay, here's what to be looking for on the left-hand side, and then to be able to consider the strengths of each coach or the feeling you had as you were interviewing each coach, so that you really can find that magic. In the interest of our time today, I want to turn over to questions and ask you to think about, first of all, what you'll take from today's session, and if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make in response to what we've shared.
All right, thanks so much, Kate. So we had 2 questions come in as we were talking today. And the first one is, what is the difference between a coach and a trainer?
So a trainer is bringing a body of knowledge and training you so that you then can take in and utilize that body of knowledge. A coach is not bringing your answers. A coach is really bringing deep listening, powerful questioning, and helping you move from where you are into action as a result of the coaching conversation. So the coach doesn't have a one-size-fits-all package that they're going to give you. They're going to customize their approach, the nature of the dialogue and the conversation you're having to you. And a good coach will not prescribe solutions. Unlike a trainer, a good coach will actually help you articulate your own solutions and then move intentionally and with purpose to enact those solutions or take those actions. So this is, I'm trying to think if I can sum this up. I think I would simply say, trainer brings knowledge, is an expert, coach is an expert at coaching, and brings the coaching process to help you really own your next steps.
Great, that's a good distinction. And I just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions for us, just use your Q&A or your chat function at the bottom of your Zoom window, and that way we can see your question. So the next question is really about the relationship between the coach and the leader, and whether that relationship should be more of a supportive relationship or a critical relationship. And what's the balance between being brutally honest, and how does that affect the way you get along working together?
Our approach is that the coach is bringing backbone and heart. So the coach is a cheerleader, but also holding the client accountable. You said that you wanted to work on this particular thing. We're now 3 sessions in, and you haven't, completed the homework or the thing that you said you would complete in the first session. What's happening? If the client has something that they achieved and it happened during the coaching, the coach will, give them a high five and, say great. And so I see that the person asked about, is the coach going to be brutally honest? And I think it's a backbone, but you shouldn't have to sort of be wincing as you're meeting with your coach, as they're not your parents. They are there to support you, but it's a support with accountability.
Yeah, it's a great answer, Tanara. I really love how you emphasize the backbone and the heart, and I think another way of saying the same thing is a coach brings challenge and support. If it's all support, it can feel pretty mushy, and it's great. It's encouraging. It feels wonderful in that regard, but you want somebody who's also going to challenge you or, play back something you're saying and say, oh, I'm hearing a contradiction here, or, you keep saying this is important and yet you haven't moved forward with the assignment that would have helped you progress in this area. What's holding you back? I think as a coach, the key here for me is that we have enough trust and connection that when I challenge you, you don't feel threatened or criticized, but rather that we're just sort of looking together, not only at what you're doing for momentum, but also what's getting in the way. Because when we can honestly look at what gets in the way, we have our best chance of making some progress. So there's compassion in it, even though there's challenge and sometimes what could be perceived as a critical observation.
The other part of Vance's question is about, is there a focus, how much of a focus should there be on how well the coach and the client quote unquote get along, working together? And I think it's about what is the quality of the connection. Do you feel that this person gets you, rather than maybe feeling like, is this somebody I can get a beer with? And you may go for a beer after your coaching session, but you want to feel that this person is solid and that the coaching engagement and the relationship is solid, and that when you're doing well, they're, giving you a high five, as I said earlier, and when you're maybe, slipping or not doing the things that you agreed to, really just holding up a mirror, as Kate said, to say what's going on.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that sometimes when we feel enormous synergy with someone, like, oh my gosh, you're so much like me, this feels great, we have so much in common, that has real advantages because it's quick trust. It feels like we have relevance for each other. And as a coach, when that happens, I always am careful to stay in my professional seat so that I don't relate to you in such a way, I don't relate to you so much that I'm then projecting onto you my own story or my own life. So coaches have a lot of training around both connecting, but also holding a professional boundary and really giving you the space to have your own life, your own challenges, and not have it be about like, we're so much alike. It really shouldn't be about me, the coach. It's really about you, the client. I would also say that sometimes choosing someone who's really different from you can really give you something that you need. And I've had many clients say, I chose you because I feel like you're really different than I am, and I wanted that perspective. So I think that, again, thinking about your own unique requirements and needs, you want challenge, you want support, you want connection, and hopefully you can find someone who can give you all of those.
Great. That was a good question. So here's another question, and I think we have time for 1 or 2 more, even though I know we're right up on our time right now. If you are a coach and your client doesn't bring any challenges to your coaching call, what do you do?
I mean, I think I would ask myself and my client, like, seems like, right, we laid out this objective for our work together, but it doesn't have a lot of juice, right? When we sit down together, there's not much news, there's not much momentum. It doesn't feel like we have purpose around this objective. Do you think we have the right objective? Or should we dig deeper or look at this from another angle to find a more motivating objective, right? So I notice I've switched our language from the idea of doesn't bring any challenges to an idea about sort of a lack of a feeling of purpose in the coaching. Purpose doesn't have to be a challenge. Like, it's not like just bring me your hard stuff, but it really should be, there should be a desire in the client for something, some growth, some change, some progress, some mastery, right? And if that's not in our conversation sufficiently, then we'll just go back to the drawing board and find where there's the most meaning and the most benefit.
Great. So let's do one more, and this is kind of a scenario question, and it's about evaluating fit. So we have, let's assume I interview Coach A and Coach B. I believe Coach A will be the best fit, but Coach A felt otherwise during our interview. If I reach out to Coach A that I would like to select him or her, would that coach have the opportunity to notify me that they did not feel it would be a good fit? Perhaps they're picking up on knowledge or intuition that I would like to know about.
That's a great question. I think the answer is yes. Usually the coach does have an opportunity to play back whether they would like to proceed. And occasionally coaches do say, I don't think this is the best fit. It could be that the coach's reasoning has to do with their own time of life, right? A set of challenges they're facing. Perhaps they've had a similar, maybe they've had a similar kind of experience recently and they want to try something different, so I would say it's important not to take it personally. If a coach chooses not to proceed with you, it could have nothing to do with you, or it could be a sense that there's somebody else they know. Often I find it as a coach, people might approach me and say, I'd like to work with you. When I listen to what they're talking about, I think, boy, do I know the right coach for you. And it's not me. It's somebody else who has more passion or more focus or more a body of work in this area, right? So I would hold it lightly, as we coaches like to say, not take it personally. And yet it doesn't hurt to ask, is there feedback for me that I could learn? It's never, the answer might be no, but it's okay to ask that question.
Great. Good. Well, I think that is all that we have time for today. So Kate, Tanara, thank you so much for the wonderful talk. I thought it was very informative. And I would just like to remind everyone that we are hosting our last webinar in the Smart Strategies for Talent Development series. This is the 7th webinar, and we'll be talking about coaching across cultures. That's December 10th at 1 p.m.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.